Good afternoon. Welcome all. We are glad to have Sarang Yadwadkar here for the 5th season of Water Talks organized by Center for Water Research. Sarang sir has been working in the field of architect. He's an architect and an environmentalist, and he has been very actively representing citizens' viewpoints in various legal battles related to river pollution, river encroachments, etc. And he was also part of the planning committee of Pune city development for 2017 to 2037. And today he'll be speaking specifically about floodlines and the legal battle which he has been undertaking since a very long time related to urban floods. So, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Over to you.
See, basically, I'm not going to burden you with any information or data or something like that. And though by profession I'm an architect, I'm working on these issues. I will try to be apolitical. I will try my level best to be apolitical, but to a certain extent, it would not be logical to be completely apolitical when the scientific decisions, environmental decisions are not taken scientifically but politically. We have to defend, defend for our environment, we have to defend for our existence. So, at some points there could be a political tone to that, so kindly forgive me for that. You please, I want it to be more interactive, so please ask any question if you have in between also. There need not be a Q&A session only at the end, let us be very informal. And though my study is specifically focused around the rivers in Pune, it is sort of a generic problem these days, not only in Pune, not only in Maharashtra, not only in our country, but everywhere in the world. And the root cause, of course, is climate change and development. And of course, we are responsible for this. We definitely are responsible for this. So, I'm going to talk upon specifically floodlines, that's one part of it. I will definitely focus more on floodlines, but we also will discuss upon the causes of urban floods, which is a new term which is born since last few years. There was no term as urban floods maybe 10, 15, 20 years back. So, we will discuss upon the other causes of urban floods also, focus more on floodlines. And before I have a PowerPoint presentation of some 15-16 slides, not more than that. I'm going to show you one documentary. It's a 9-minute documentary based upon one of my our petitions filed in National Green Tribunal, which we fought up to the Supreme Court level. Kapil Sibbal was standing against us, but we won there also. And let us have that documentary first. Then most of the part of, as far as floodlines are concerned, is explained in the documentary.
As human culture evolved, humans gave up their wandering lifestyle to settle down along riverbanks. Innumerable cities in India are situated on rivers. Pune is one of those numerous cities. Pune, famously termed as the Oxford of the East. Pune, considered to be the cultural capital of Maharashtra. But this city has forgotten the very Mutha river on which it is situated. Would you believe it if you were told that this is the Mutha riverbed? No flowing water, no trees, no riverbank. This is an illegal attempt by the Pune Municipal Corporation to build a road on the riverbed. These reckless actions were set in motion in 2005. That year, Pune Municipal Corporation made a disastrous change to Pune's development plan. The PMC de-reserved these floodplains near Vittalwadi in the Mutha riverbed for housing projects. The administration knowingly turned a blind eye towards the enormous risk of building on the riverbed. This was a plot by the builders, politicians, and administrative officers. For no fault of his own, the common man bore its consequences. Since the construction was approved by the PMC, people confidently bought homes here. People were lured into buying homes with the incentive of a road that would soon be constructed here. But nobody informed them how hazardous that road might prove for them. The construction of this dangerous road began in 2010. The PMC constructed 30 feet tall and 2 kilometers long concrete walls, dumped around 60,000 trucks loads of debris on the riverbed, and completed the semi-finished road in merely 2 years. They glorified their actions as development for the benefit of citizens. Would you want to peek into the future and see the havoc this development could create? The Irrigation Department of Maharashtra has defined blue and red flood lines along every river. These lines indicate how much land adjoining the riverbed would submerge in water in the event of a flood. The red flood line indicates the maximum level reached by the water during floods in the previous 100 years. Hence, construction inside the red flood line has to be controlled. The land inside the blue flood line is a prohibitive zone, that is, no development zone. Despite this, the PMC gave permissions for housing projects on this no development zone. There are 4 dams on Mutha River, namely Khadakwasla, Panshet, Varasgaon and Temghar. Of these, the Khadakwasla Dam is hardly 7 kilometers from Pune. Of all the 4 dams, Khadakwasla has the largest capacity to release water. Imagine the scenario if Pune receives excessive rains or experiences a cloudburst like Mumbai in the catchment area of any of these dams. Mutha River will assume monstrous proportions in no time. At the same time, rainwater will be gushing down Tarzai Hill towards Mutha. Thanks to the mammoth debris dumped on the riverbed, only a narrow culvert is available for this water to reach the course of the river. Hence, instead of this water entering the river, the great pressure of river water will force this water back, and the river water will enter into the buildings constructed on the riverbed. In 1997, there was no road embankment on the riverbed. Take a look at the situation when 90,000 cusecs water was released. In 2011, though the road embankment was constructed, the buildings could not be saved when 67,000 cusecs water was released. It means that even though lesser water was released, the embankment constructed for the road wasn't able to protect the buildings from the flood waters. While constructing this road, it was claimed that it would protect the buildings from the floodwaters. But you can see with your own eyes how false that claim proved to be. On the contrary, this road embankment has itself become a potential hazard for these buildings. If in the future in January 2013, a case was filed against this road before National Green Tribunal on the basis of documents obtained under the Right to Information Act. The tribunal admitted that the buildings along the riverbed were at great risk due to this road. All judges and the expert members of the tribunal finally adjudged this road to be completely unscientific and dangerous. This judgment was challenged by PMC in the Supreme Court of India. On 12th February 2015, the Supreme Court finally directed the Pune Municipal Corporation to remove all debris dumped on the riverbed. However, the Pune Municipal Corporation came out of its lethargy after the 6-month term granted by the Supreme Court expired. They have begun the removal of the rubble now. This case has saved the residents from the potential harm created by this road. But some questions still remain unanswered. How the permissions to construct buildings on the riverbed were given? In case of a flood, who will take responsibility of the safety of these families? 4,000 tons of steel have been wasted. The construction of this road costs rupees 17.5 crores. Millions were wasted in contesting the court cases. Now there will be an additional cost of about rupees 4 crores for the removal of the debris. These expenses are borne by the public exchequer, the citizen of Pune. But why should we bear the brunt of this? Will the officers responsible for this huge wastage of public resources ever be prosecuted? There are innumerable questions. But the real question is whether we will take the initiative to look for the answers to these questions. There is the convenient option of not reacting at all. It is up to you to make the right choice.
So we lost around 25-30 crore rupees in building and then removing this road. We lost it because of the stupidity of some bureaucrats and politicians. And the same mistake is being carried out now also. Same. There is another 100 feet wide road being built on Mula Mutha river, rather at a more dangerous location after confluence of Mula and Mutha, from Bandgarden to Mundwa. We have filed a case against that also. So now continuously we are filing the cases. Few days back we lost one of our very important petitions, you know that. And that petition was filed against the environmental clearance given to the riverfront development project that is being carried on in Pune city. In that project, the cross-sectional area, the flow area of the river is being reduced by around 40%. And they claim that after reducing the cross-sectional area, the flood levels are going to go down. I mean, they are reducing the width of the river, by 40%, and it is claimed that the flood levels will go down, which is very unscientific. It is exactly copy paste job of Sabarmati river, which is in Ahmedabad. Every river is different, like every person. Sabarmati has a dam on the upstream at 130 kilometers. We have 8 dams now on Mura and Mutha within a distance of 20-25 kilometers. So this is a totally different situation, but in spite of that, without considering the environmental effects, without considering the laws of nature, this project is being pushed upon us, which definitely would cause disastrous effect, which we have seen this year also. Anyway, I will go into that. But in this documentary, it is mentioned, it is explained what are the flood lines. Okay, first of all, let us have a look at that. See, this is up to 2020, we have prepared this draft. This is the frequency of urban floods in India. Suddenly from 2014, 2015 onwards, the graph has gone up. This is very interesting development. Why this graph has gone up? Why frequency of urban floods has increased so much? There are certain causes behind it. Very simple, it's commonsensical, nothing very scientific in that. See, increased stormwater runoff due to soil capping and urbanizations. We are talking about urban floods particularly. So, urbanization is increasing, and urbanizations means by default concretization everywhere. We can't see open soil anywhere. Go to any building, visit any building, and there is concretization either for traffic or for parking or for movement, whatever it is. So no exposed soil is there. Even in the gardens also, pavers blocks are installed on concrete, on top of concrete. So because of this, as no porous soil is available, water doesn't percolate into the ground. So most of the rainwater gets converted into surface runoffs, which lead ultimately to the rivers, increasing the flow of river. That is one of the causes. Then climate change impacts. I hope you are aware of the TERI report, the Energy and Resources Institute of India report. It is about the state of Maharashtra. They have prepared a report about other states also. But as far as Pune is concerned, in their report they have given that there will be 37.5% rise in annual rainfall, with more events of cloudbursts, with more rain with lesser rainy days, intense rains, cloudbursts, which ultimately lead to flooding. Failure of stormwater drainage system. Our stormwater drainage systems are designed and maintained by the ULBs, by these officers, which are not concerned about it. Their design itself is faulty, now insufficient, inadequate because of the increased rains, increased cloudbursts, and extremely poor maintenance. I will show you some photographs. Then hill cutting and tree felling. See, when it rains, Pune is a saucer-shaped city. Everywhere there are hills. These hills act like natural overhead tanks. They absorb water, they absorb rainwater, store it, and release it over the year in the aquifers, thereby recharging the groundwater. But when you cut the hills, when you cut the trees on the hills, that water flows down very fast to the nearest streams. It doesn't get absorbed in the hills, and that also increases the surface runoffs and then flooding, flash floods. And this is one of the biggest reasons. Encroachments on water bodies. All water bodies, whether static or dynamic, whether a lake or a river or a stream, are encroached everywhere, everywhere. We have seen, whether it is Chennai, whether it is Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Delhi, Nagpur, Pune, go to any city, the river, there is no city in the world which is not on river, there are a few exceptions, but generally civilization has evolved around water body, around rivers, and every river flowing through city is encroached these days, because we have not followed the Lakshman Resha of red and blue line. See, these are the stormwater drainage chamber covers. These are concrete covers. Out of these 20 holes, hardly 4 holes are open. This is the way our systems are maintained. Everywhere you go, anywhere, this is a typical chamber cover. This is what lies inside a chamber. So how the stormwater is going to go to the nearest stream? This is not possible. These are the streams. See the encroachments after the flood. This is in Pune, Bhairova Nala. How the streams are encroached upon. This is one industrial estate, hardly maybe 2 kilometers on the downstream of a dam. Hardly 2 kilometers. How systematically they have encroached upon the river. This is Mutha River. And this entire industrial estate is on the floodplains. It has reduced the width of the river, it has reduced the carrying capacity, flood carrying capacity of the river, but they are given all NOCs, all electrical connections, everything. This is on Mula River. See what is the height of this encroachment, dumping. This is a single floor building. Imagine the height. Now this is interesting. You must have heard about Naik Island. There is an island in Pune, immediately after confluence of Mula and Mutha River. Generally the islands are formed near the confluence. This is the almond shaped island. This is a photograph taken before the riverfront development work started. Okay. Now you see on this side there is confluence of Mula and Mutha. Mula river comes from this direction, Mutha comes like this, and it flows as Mula Mutha river. Now it has two sides, left flow and right flow. See the width. Even this is the parking created by way of dumping debris on the river. Now this is before the riverfront development work started. And now see, this entire portion they have encroached upon the river. See the width here. What is the width of the river? And see this width. Not only that, this flow is completely blocked. This is completely blocked by way of encroaching, crossing the flood lines, not following their own rules. This is done by PMC, and because of this, Pune city experienced severe floods in 2024. When Khadakwasla Dam has a discharge capacity of around 1 lakh cubic feet per second, this time many parts of the city were flooded at 35,570 cusecs, almost 35% of the dam's peak capacity. That is because of this encroachment, which is immediately on the downstream of the confluence. This is the ongoing work of riverfront development. Blue line is somewhere here, and this is completely encroaching the blue line. Earlier the same location was like this. See. So basically there are two types of flood lines. Blue line, which identifies, which marks the flood level. See, this is not a contour. This is a flood level of the flood that may occur at the frequency of once in 25 years. So blue line is inside. This flood occurs more frequently. Then there is red flood line, which indicates the level of the flood which may occur at the frequency of once in 100 years. That is less frequent. Water Resources Department has the responsibility. Water Resources Department, it's a state subject. So Water Resources Department of every state is responsible for identifying the flood lines. Area between two blue lines which are inside, near to the central flow of the river, the area, the land portion, river land between two blue lines is prohibitive zone. No construction is permissible, no construction. And area between blue line and red line on both banks of the river is called as restrictive zone. Construction is permissible there, but on columns, and you have to have plinth level some 45-50 centimeters above the level of red line, so that the flood water doesn't enter into the building. Whether it is scientific, whether it is correct or not, that's a different issue, but this is the legal provision as far as flood lines are concerned. Now, to identify these flood lines, three aspects are very important. One is releases peak. If there is a dam on the upstream, like Pune city, if there is a dam on the upstream, the peak release from the dam at the frequency of once in 25 and once in 100 years, release from the dam, peak release capacity of the dam, then flow from free catchment area. See, if the dam is at the distance of say 12 kilometers from the city, you are located 12 kilometers on the downstream of the dam. See, if the dam has a X release capacity, and if it is raining between the city and the dam, that surface runoff, that water also enters into the river. So, that also needs to be added while computing the peak flow, while identifying the flood lines. That is called as flow from free catchment area. And everywhere this is different. For Pune city, the total free catchment area is 1298 square kilometers. That's not a small area, 1298 square kilometers. Then confluence effect. When two rivers meet each other, that inertia of two different flows, that inertia hit each other, both the inertias. They hit each other and they reduce the flow. Both rivers reduce the flow, reduce the velocity of each other, which creates back pressure on the upstream in both the rivers, and ultimately flood level rises because of confluence. That is called as confluence effect. So, three most important parameters are the peak discharge capacity from the dams, flow from catchment area, and confluence effect. While identifying flood lines at many locations, only dam discharge is considered. At many locations, flow from free catchment area is not considered, confluence effect is not considered. So, that also is causing huge problem in urban areas. So, this is a typical map of flood lines. This is in Pune city. This is the central channel of the river, and this is blue line, this is red line. Though this is not a very scientific map, this map has been created in 2011. Now, the system to identify the flood lines has evolved much beyond it. So, the maps are going to be…
Clarification is on the Pune PMC website, the Pune flood control website. So, there are blue and red line maps for almost all the different locations. So, are they updated frequently, or what is the process of…
See, are those maps marked on, are those lines, flood lines marked on Google Images?
No, so these are exactly like what you're presenting now. So, probably they're updated.
They are, see, initially Pune flood lines were marked in 2011. Those were legal flood lines, but not very scientific. Okay, that is 2011. Subsequently, one executive engineer, in collusion with some high level officers in PMC, prepared fraudulent floodline maps of Pune city. He shifted the flood lines towards the center of the river without any hydraulic study, without getting approval, which is required as per law from the higher authorities. He shifted the flood lines inside and handed over those fraudulent maps, erroneous maps, to PMC. PMC officers also, without checking, without verifying those maps, superimposed those maps in the DP map, development plan, and they have started giving the building permissions. This is happening not only in Pune, but in Pimpri Chinchwad area also. So now High Court, in one of our PILs, High Court has directed Water Resources Department to re-identify the floodlines of Pune. So 2011 floodlines were legal but not scientific, because flow from free catchment area and confluence effect was not considered. 2016 floodlines were illegal as well as unscientific. Therefore, new floodlines are to be identified, which will take another 2 to 3 years minimum, particularly in Pune city.
Probably this must be the 2016 version which is up online.
Could be, yeah.
But at least for some areas, at least the sample area I have in my study, so they have, I think, updated the much more newer version, because they have a section in the map that says they have revised the map on the.
Who? They means who?
They as in
Is it PMC?
yeah, it's on the same website. The maps are there, so it's a revised version
Is-
as per NGT order. I think.
Is it? No. That is a High Court order. That order is given in our PIL 36 of 2021, and the order is published on 24th of June or 26th of June this year. So those maps available on PMC website are fraudulent maps. They have given building permissions of 18, 20 storied buildings completely on floodplains. Those are, and not only that, they have given permission to 2233 basements also. You remember, anybody remembers 2019 floods in Pune? Ambiloda flood. Ambiloda is not even called as a river. It's a tributary of hardly 11 kilometers length. It originates in Katras Valley, and it flooded. There was a flash flood, and within hours 25 people lost their lives. There one treasure park building, 2 or 3 basements were completely flooded. People had to scrap their Mercedes and BMWs. So similarly, now basements are being allowed in even still more dangerous part of the riverbed. It is because of those floodlines. We have challenged it, and the High Court has directed to mark the floodlines again. So that is the story of floodlines. I have not gone into the intricacies of it, and this is the Bun Garden Bridge, when discharge was hardly 15 to 20% of the peak capacity. So this is after confluence. Mutha River was carrying that time 35,000 cusecs, to be precise 35,570 cusecs. Mula River was not carrying except normal flow. In addition to that, flow from free catchment area was there, which has never been calculated, which has never been given any consideration in the floodlines. But in spite of that, this was the level of the flood. Imagine if Khadakwasla Dam releases 1 lakh cusecs, what will happen? You have seen one residential portion in that earlier documentary, when those buildings were constructed on the floodplains, where the road was built. Exactly the same area gets flooded. Those buildings are constructed on floodplains. Corporation gave permission to those buildings, district collector gave permission to those buildings, because that time the floodlines were not identified. The floodlines were identified in 2011. Those were the first floodlines identified in Maharashtra. Though the circular was issued way back in 1918, on 21st of September 1918, the circular was issued by the state government that the floodlines need to be identified. The first floodlines were identified after 22 years in a developed state like Maharashtra. So that is the story in short. So now we have filed with different people, different groups. We have filed many cases in NGT, High Court as PIL. These are the cases. The first one you have seen, Riverbed Road at Vittalwadi. Then one private encroachment which was used for vehicular parking of one marriage hall. We won that case. They had to remove that encroachment, it was reducing the carrying capacity of the river by 14.89%. Riverfront development that we have been challenging continuously. I am not discussing the details of the riverfront development, that's an independent issue on its own. It's a big issue. If you have any question, definitely we can discuss on that. Construction of metro on the prohibitive zone in Pune, the metro alignment is again on the prohibitive zone, and it has increased as per CWPRS report. It has increased the flood level by minimum 40 centimeters. See, vertical rise in 40 centimeters leads to huge submersions horizontally. So that again is done illegally, under development, as I said. Then one private builder, he broke one sewage line of sewage coming from Kothurud area and allowed the entire sewage, he intentionally broke it, enter into Mutha river without treatment. Otherwise that sewage was going to the sewage treatment plant. He broke the line for his convenience, 90 centimeters, 3 feet diameter line. So we filed a case against him. We won the case, and a fine of 4.5 crore rupees he had to pay. Then challenge to the environmental clearance granted to the riverfront development, as I said. Tree felling for the ongoing, that was an independent case. They are going to cut minimum, officially I mean, 11,150 trees in Pune for riverfront. I mean, they are cutting the existing native trees and would be planting some non-native trees over there. So as we lost the case, our case was to be heard, hearing was on 19th of this month. The court was to start at 10:30 NGT. The case was before NGT, challenging the environmental clearance given to this riverfront development project. And the court starts at 10:30, and at 10:25 we get a mail from the government that we have given environmental clearance to this project, 5 minutes before the court starts. So you can imagine what is happening. Then construction of the ongoing 100 feet wide road on the riverbed, I mentioned about it, that is from Bund Garden to Mundwa. Floodlines in flood-prone areas all over Maharashtra. That's a old case we have filed in 2014. Based on our case, NGT has directed the Water Resources Department to draw floodlines all over Maharashtra in all flood-prone areas. Lot of politics is going on that front. Then we have filed one more case of 12 representative encroachments on riverbeds within Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad and PMRDA area. Then PIL to demarcate correct floodlines in the DP, that's what I mentioned, PIL 36, in which High Court has given a very good order. So those are the cases which we have filed. So that's over. I have shared my information as far as floods, particularly more of in Pune context. So if you have any question or, yeah.
Are there any physical demarcation on the ground for the floodlines?
There should be, but there are not. Hardly at any location, not officially. They should have marked it actually.
Neither for the 2011 or the 2016 case?
No, no.
So how would a scientific assessment of the floodlines look like?
See, that is done with a software called HECRAS, that is developed by American Army. And now the state government has constituted a committee under the leadership of Chief Secretary, Additional Chief Secretary Water Resources. Some 5-6 members are there. They are planning to collect the data of the entire catchment. Without considering surveying the entire catchment, they cannot work out the flow from free catchment. And then they have given a timeline of around 2 years to work out the floodlines, to identify the floodlines only for Pune city. So they have started their work, and it's headed by Water Resources Department.
So in the meanwhile, involving people in finding out what the water level was when they were faced with floods in say 2019 or in other years. So could that be a temporary benchmark to maybe prevent
It should be actually. It should be a temporary benchmark. See, even if it is going to take they say that it's going to take 2 years, it may take some more time also. So in the meanwhile, they should consider some interim floodlines to give building permissions along the river banks. So interim floodlines should be there, for which they can collect data, they can conduct surveys to identify, as you rightly said, flood levels in 2019 or maybe 2024, and accordingly they can decide यहाँ से 50 मीटर छोड़ के building permission देने का. That kind of a policy they can adopt, but I don't think they will do so, because these decisions are more politically governed. In this riverfront development project, it was discussed in the general body meeting of PMC for 3.5 hours. Okay, it was discussed on 22nd or 23rd of February 2018, and the DPR, detailed project report of 2,500 pages was delivered to the corporators in the form of a CD at 11 p.m. on the earlier night. So they were not even given 12 hours. The DPR was in English. Many of the corporators do not understand English. It was in the form of a CD. Many of them do not have CD drives. And even if the corporator is PhD in English, he cannot read 2,500 pages in a night. And next day the proposal was put for approval, in which commissioner himself said that because of this project, we are going to construct the embankment walls on the floodplains, and floodlines will shift inside, and 1,800 acres of land will be converted from no development zone to developable zone. Now, can you imagine 1,800 acres of land in the center of the city being converted from no development zone to development zone, which will be sold out? And we have seen some advertisements in Ahmedabad maybe 1 or 2 weeks back along Narmada river. So that will be auctioned, and that is the main carrot hanging before these bureaucrats as well as corporators to be elected. So that's going to be a disastrous project as far as Pune, because it is in complete violation of all applicable laws as far as floodlines are concerned. Yeah.
2 questions. If these floodlines were drawn in 2011 for the first time, then prior to that, what was the yardstick used to give any kind of building permissions near the river or even in the riverbed? And secondly, no, but nothing on paper also, is it?
Nothing on paper. Nothing on paper. Yeah.
Secondly, when you construct a bridge which has pillars in the river, no, I mean not just in the riverbed, which is open land, but actually in the water, does that also reduce the carrying capacity significantly? And then when you have multiple bridges, I'm not even talking about bunds, but just bridges with pillars coming in the river. So multiple bridges, every addition of a new bridge, does it restrict the carrying capacity, and will the floodlines, should they be going further away then?
See, basically every bridge is an impediment to the natural flow of river.
Right.
Okay, if it is not a suspended bridge from two ends,
Right.
but there is hardly any bridge as such. Every bridge causes impediment, and while identifying the floodlines, you have to give that input in the software, that these so many are the pillars, so much is the width of every pillar, that is the shape. Generally they have fish shaped. Pillars of the bridge are fish shaped to create minimal resistance to the flow. But definitely every bridge causes obstruction to the natural flow of water. See, ultimately now in Pune, how many bridges are there total Pune area? Around 50.
50 in
Yeah.
just Pune.
Yeah. Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad area, around 50 bridges are there. Mula Mutha and Mula Mutha Pauna. So all these bridges are causing, we have to consider that now while re-identifying the flood lines, they have to take into account the resistance caused by these bridges.
You mentioned 2 points. One is the latest EC that was given by SIA to RFD, and the other one is the latest order by High Court of having the new flood lines. So I'm just asking if legally can we connect these two, that if there are no flood lines right now that are acceptable, then SIA's ECs won't stand. So can we connect this and have at least some kind of stop, a pause on the work right
Strategically, we don't want to connect it.
now? Acha, okay.
Strategically. These are, we have gone to the High Court. So NGT has a different schedule of acts. It cannot go beyond that. Okay, MRTP, Maharashtra Regional Town Planning Act 1966 doesn't come under the schedule of NGT. And that is why, see, honestly speaking, the existing bench in NGT is absolutely irrational. It's a pathetic bench, horrible bench. Let me be very clear about it. So we decided to file an independent case under MRTP in Mumbai High Court. And High Court bench is much better, though it gives the dates little late, but something is better than nothing. So this case is before the Chief Justice, and that bench is much better than NGT bench. So we have intentionally we have kept these issues disconnected from each other. And now we would be filing few more cases, or maybe in some different names also. Different petitioners. That also is a matter of strategy. Because otherwise it is called as forum shopping. To avoid that. Yeah. So any other question?
So I have one question.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say, out of these 11 cases, especially with regard to number 3, is it fair
Yeah.
enough to say that the purpose of these cases is really going to be just slowing down the development? Because from the other side, with enormous resources, it's not easy to probably not completely stop the development at all. But will these legal cases slow down?
It had slowed down. See, when we first challenged the environmental, I'll tell you briefly about it. When we challenged the environmental clearance given, it was given in 2019. It was before NGT. Then NGT directed that the project proponent, which is PMC, Pune Municipal Corporation, should get an amended environmental clearance to the project, and they should not go ahead with the project without amendment in the EC. EC is given by MOEF. Okay. But in spite of that, PMC went ahead with the construction. So we filed execution application. Now the entire project is of 44 kilometer length, which is divided into 11 stretches, out of which they had started the construction of 3 stretches. So NGT said that chalo abhi shuru kiya hai. So that's the way it should not, that should not be the way the judiciary should work. But unfortunately, judiciary is working completely under political pressure. That pillar is really not very stable, unfortunately. So NGT said that as you have started the work, it is in public interest, you go ahead with the work in 3 stretches, but do not start the work of remaining 8 stretches unless you get amended environmental clearance. So PMC applied for amendment in the environmental clearance, that is issued by SIA, State Level Environment Impact Assessment Authority. So they said they differed with the environmental clearance, and they put some very stringent conditions before PMC that you comply these conditions, get clearances from CWPRS that it will not raise flood levels, whether confluence effect is taken into consideration, whether flow from free catchment area is concerned, whether you are following all Indian standard norms, get clearances from CWPRS. PMC went to CWPRS, but CWPRS did not give them a single clearance. In the meanwhile, that SIA committee was dissolved because of their time limit. And in another next 2-3 months, a new SIA committee was constituted, that is on the recommendation of the state government. A new SIA committee is constituted maybe 2 months back. See, these committees are basically post-retirement occupation for the high-level government officers to continue their income. So that committee gave this environmental clearance to RFD without considering a single condition imposed by the earlier SIA, without considering. So that is something very weird and very illogical. But anyway, they have the authority and they have given the permission. So, and that email we received from SIA 5 minutes before the hearing started. So we had no option but to withdraw the case as of now. But the fight goes on. We have to. Yes.
I just wanted to ask the legality of riverfront development. When Metro came in, there was no act under which it was identified, and then later on they brought in an act for it. And Metro was even out of the mandatory environment impact assessment under the EPA. So it created a big problem because you didn't know where to put this project. It came under which law, and then they had to bring in a law for it. For riverfront development, because it is happening in so many cities right now, or at least it's proposed, what is the legality? It's just part of the under MRTP, part of DP, or what does it come under?
Actually, nobody knows the answer of your question, because what they have done, now they are not even going for environmental clearances in many other cities. In Pune, they applied for EC under the category of area development project. Like township, it's a category 8B under EIA notification. That is townships and area development projects. But now there should be an independent category for projects like riverfront development, but it is not there. So taking advantage, rather disadvantage of that, now all these projects, most of these projects are designed by one and only Bimal Patel. One nation, one card, one nation, one architect. वो बॉम्बे पोर्ट ट्रस्ट हो, सेंट्रल विस्टा हो, बनारस घाट हो, साबरमती रिवर फ्रंट डेवलपमेंट हो. So even IISER का अगर if you want to come up with some different project, Bimal will be there. So all or most of these riverfront development projects are by him, and now he's not going for environmental clearance. There is no category, so they are taking disadvantage of that.
So strange, because HCMTR comes under area development and RFD also comes under area development. I mean, they're such different projects, but
Let us be silent on HCMTR. I mean, that's a different issue altogether. But RFD, see, HCMTR is a construction after all, completely concrete construction. This is development. Though there is a lot of construction involved in it, 80% of the cost is in civil construction, as far as RFD is concerned, and they call it rejuvenation of river. Not a single rupee is being spent for cleaning the rivers. Everything is being spent on embankments, concrete walls, and parking for vehicles, all that. And we call it a rejuvenation of the river. And see, this is happening all over the country.
So are you able to raise enough funds to fight these cases?
Crowdfunding. There are some generous people who are helping us out.
So, I mean, apart from the cases which we have to anyway do, what about other programs that create citizen awareness?
That's a very interesting question you have
I was
asked.
wondering, since the floods in Pune happened recently, I have a question which is information based one, but before that I want to find out what about the possibility of a campaign where we actually walk in all the places where the water reached and actually draw our own map before, as you said, that might take another 2 years before they would redraw the blue lines and red lines. So why not, we can walk along those places and ask people, take pictures if there are any marks, like for example, usually on the walls.
Or even you can send lat-long positions.
That's right.
Yeah, just
Lat-long positions
send
can
that
be done.
position to your own email address, and then you can create a map on that.
Yeah, I mean, apart from that, we can use the OpenStreetMap and actually walk, just walking on that line.
Yes.
That will actually create some kind of an awareness also in terms of, because unless there is citizen approval,
Absolutely.
people will have no fear. They'll continue doing all these things unless more people are actually, and this can actually be taken up even as a citizen science project, because you're actually trying to find out where did the water reach. It's like a factual work without all those other aspects. Just factually, we just go and walk.
That would be of great help
Places.
actually. That would be.
And the other
But for
question-
that we need
The other related question I have is this place where it reached, is it the blue line or the red line?
Which one?
Recent flood.
Which blue line you mean? To 2011 or 2016? So it crossed the blue line.
It crossed the blue line.
See, the blue line in Mutha River is identified for a dam discharge of 60,000 cusacks. Once in 25 years, 60,000. The discharge this year was 35,000. It crossed the blue line because of two reasons. One is encroachments on the river, and secondly, while identifying the blue line, flow from free catchment area has not been considered. Whereas it was huge, it was really pouring on the downstream of the dam. So those surface runoffs were adding to the release from the dams. That was not considered. So everything is responsible. The flood line is incorrect and there was more flow. Not only that, where the metro is constructed, in 2011, that blue line of 60,000 cusacks was crossed with a flow of 43,000 cusacks or 41,000 cusacks. I don't remember, but 41 or 43,000 cusacks. So it is, see, the foundations of metro are, foundation of one pillar is bigger than this hall. It's like a 3-4 bedroom flat, one foundation, and it is completely above ground, not below ground, because when they started digging for the metro, they discovered that there are some sewage lines going below the ground. So now they cannot shift the alignment. So they inserted piles on both sides of the sewer lines and constructed pile caps, those footings completely above ground. So those were the additional obstruction to the natural flow. Not only that, they are constructing one pedestrian bridge, which is a hanging bridge near Narayanpet. So those pillars are completely in 90 degrees to the natural flow of river, and width is around 20-30 feet of one pillar. So all these infrastructure, I do agree that we need good infrastructure, but what happens in developed countries, first infrastructure is developed and then civilization. In our case, it is exactly the other way around. And the most important part is that, while in urban planning, we forget that there should be some limit to the population of that particular city or village, which depends upon the availability of land, availability of water and all those things. Our city, there are only two things in this world, they grow continuously without stopping. Tell me which are those two things. Human greed and cities, our cities. So Pune actually has become obese. It's not growing anymore. Rather, it's getting malignant day by day. So many metros. We should, this metro should be used to build satellite cities. But instead of that, we are increasing the FSI, the maximum FSI permissible in Pune city, maximum I mean, is more than 9. So where there could be some 10-15 flats in one plot, now they are building 60-70 flats. So what they are going deep into the basement ground to construct basements, which are disturbing the aquifers. So anyway, that's a different issue altogether, not directly related to floodlines. But see, ultimately it boils down to e-development, which we need to stop growth of the cities. Yeah.
I just wanted to know, like these blue lines and red lines for the rivers, do they also have any such definitions for these other 3 major rivulets which are in Pune, like Bhagirath, Ambiloda and Naxal?
Legally, they should have drawn the floodlines for all these rivulets or tributaries, whatever you call. But they have not identified floodlines for that. But hopefully, because of this new order of the High Court, we have written to them that you have to identify the floodlines for the tributaries also. Hopefully they will, but see, basically, well, even if they identify, it will be a pointless exercise, because these tributaries, whether Bhairobala, Nala, Ambiloda, all these tributaries, they are concretized, they are channelized, and there is development to the edge of it. You will have to, shift the people, shift the houses from there, if you really want to clear the floodplains. That will be practically very difficult. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, like, in such a big project like RFD, are people involved in any part of the process, let's say from like, the ideation part till the implementation or even the evaluation, like how is it working out? Are people involved in any part of the process?
On paper, yes. Practically, no. They have conducted surveys convenient to them. If you want, I have a copy of it, soft copy of it. But practically, they have not done anything. And people are also very lethargic in our country. We call Pune as the Oxford of the East, but one of the laziest cities. Because richer we get, the lesser we get concerned with the society and environment. मेरे को क्या लेना देना है मेरे घर के बाहर क्या चलता है? I am comfortable in my house. Forget about everything. That is the attitude, typical Indian attitude. You will see the houses very clean, but if you step on the road, it's extremely dirty, littered everywhere. Why? Go to Europe, go to US. Why not so? So people are also responsible for this. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for a very informative and insightful presentation. I have a little off-track question, definitely related to floods, but if I can take you to the context of Vai and Menavli Ghats, where we understand the historical structures share a very different relationship with the water, the Krishna River.
Yes.
And they also face the floods. They have also faced floods in past, So, how are the measures taken for such contexts, which are of course different from the urban floods and their challenges?
Are you from Y?
No, I have worked as a conservation
Okay,
architect.
okay, 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 okay. See, basically that white temple is just on, that's Krishna river as.
Ganpati temple. Yes,
Yeah,
on the Krishna.
yeah. Now afterwards the dam is constructed on the upstream. When a dam is constructed, there is huge difference between lean flow and peak flow. That is very unnatural. Okay, so that is one cause of the floods. Secondly, they have concretized the river. There was a case filed by us in NGT against that against the concretization at Y. Municipal Council was fined for trivial 25 lakh rupees. But they paid the fine and continued with the concretization. See, when you concretize the river bed, water doesn't percolate into the ground. So, it increases the flood levels. So, floods are going to be there in Y because of climate change. And see, like human beings, every river has its own temperament. Sometimes some of us are very hot headed, some of us are very cool headed. So, rivers are also like that. See, Krishna river is east flowing river. It originates in Sahyadri range. So, its catchment area on the upstream of Y is very steep, is hilly. So, because of that, velocity of the surface runoffs is very high. Even in Pune also, Mula, Mutha, till the dams, their catchment is very steep in hilly terrain, even Ambiloda also for that matter. So, the water gushes down to that stream very fast, which leads in flash floods like hot tempered person, and exactly that happens at Y. Even Y municipal council has given permission to hospitals also on the floodplains. Yeah, I have been there quite a few times. So ultimately it is mainly, see, I tell you one thing, I have seen these people from very close quarters, whether it is judiciary, politicians or bureaucrats. Bureaucrats really teach politicians how to take wrong decisions and earn money in their own interests. Politicians are there, most of them are there for 5 years or like that, but bureaucrats are their coaches, and they are not interested in public or environmental protection. I mean, I don't want to make such I didn't want to make such statements, but that's my experience. Any other? Yeah.
I was just wanting to ask about the citizens' participation, but then you mentioned that there is lethargy in people's participation regarding these issues.
Yes.
So, generally, the issue should be like it should be first like at awareness level, and then people's mobilization should be there, and then the courts battle if at all needed. But then there is a short circuiting of the process. We are going from a bit of awareness and then to courts. So how do you see this short circuiting working or not, and at what? How do you see the?
Say, it's a very basic question you asked. I will not call it a short circuiting. We have divided our, see, we don't want this riverfront development. Many of us, there's a pretty big group. We have divided our actions in 3 verticals: legal, social and political. So, I cannot share right now what is going on political front, okay, but we are working on that front also. As far as social vertical is concerned, Amit Raj could be a better person to share information than me, because I am not working much on political front, on social front. I am working on legal front right from the beginning. From as far as RFD is concerned, I am working on it for last 8 years.
So I can share my experience with the social work, and that will enter into what you mentioned earlier, it goes and touches the political, it makes it political. Uh, every time I raise this issue, we talk about it. Uh, it becomes, oh, this is development, this is BJP, so you're opposing BJP, and then the topic just dead ends there. Conversation never goes further. That's it. People just shut off their minds. So that is the difficult part, how to go beyond that.
There's also one small part. This word short circuiting is a very, very wrong word, I think, because I'll tell you why. It seems to someone who doesn't know the subject or doesn't know, he sees a problem when he reads in the paper. But when you move from awareness to legal cases, there's a lot that has happened in between. There's a lot of lobbying, there's a lot of engagement, there's a lot of RTI filing, there's a lot of networking, there's a lot of engaging with PMC and so on that has happened, the process that actually one doesn't see. So it feels like short-circuited, like you move from awareness directly gone to the court. Going to the court is not easy because it takes, it actually takes a long time to build up a case. It takes a long time to find the right lawyer. After you file in, it takes a long time to get a hearing. So there are also a lot of other cases, of course you see here 11 and then there are ones for the Tekri also, which have been going on for some time. So to just give an example, even with regards to Tekri, you file a case in 2006, you get a judgment after a decade. So there's a lot that goes on. I think it looks like short-circuiting, but it's actually not. And awareness comes somewhere in between, when people start to know and start to read. Like something has to happen for people to move. For example, an order for construction. So the tender is going to be passed. That's an event. And then, people get mobilized and, they come together and then they oppose or they agitate and so on. But for general public, some point of convergence or some visibility has to happen, which doesn't these things move over a period of time very slowly. So visibility is a bit of a...
So I did not mean short circuit. By short circuit, I did not mean that in a negative way. I meant it that if the citizens' pressure group is there, so the judiciary will also have some pressure of citizens, and also they will see facts more clearly. Also the politicians, and also all those people whose interests are involved in the particular project. So in that way, I mentioned that if the pressure group of citizens is there, a large one, I'm saying. So only in that case, probably these cases, also the legal cases will, the legal machinery will also work in favor of the activists. That's what I meant.
God bless you if your words come true, that social pressure will work on judiciary.
So in that sense, I meant not.
Yeah, I got it actually.
No, I don't want to prolong this discussion, but I think there is quite a bit of debate on judicial activism and how environmental issues have been taken up.
See, these are the 11 issues. Every issues, there are minimum 3 to 4 cases we have filed. Pehle petition, then execution application, then contempt, then go to Supreme Court. So many things.
Even how it is covered in the news media is also very problematic.
Have you seen 2-3 days before?
Times of India article.
It was a Maharashtra Times article. Maharashtra Times article. They Twitter वर I have challenged that writer. Panse.
Was like Madhara, Gadgil and all that. Let them be the jury. Let us debate on this project. If we are wrong, we will quit. If you are wrong, you should withdraw the project. Openly, we have sent letters also to that effect, but they are not ready to come in front of the society. Dummy nahi hai. That's the fact.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Very much.